Hello all, in this particular tutorial we will learn how to run IBM Db2 database in Docker. To run IBM Db2 database we have only two steps. You will have to pull the Docker image using docker pull command, and once you have pulled the image you can use the docker run command to run the Docker image. Now I would like to give you a warning. Do not use below Docker image. This particular Docker image is not maintained by IBM. This is the latest Docker image. This will not be the latest Docker image. So let's go to this particular location and try to pull the Docker from this particular location. Do not use this location. Once the Docker image has been pulled or downloaded on your machine, you can use the docker run command. These are some of the optional parameters. So name is the name of the Docker that you would like to give. Privilege is equal to true. These are environmental variables. License, we'll need to accept the license. This becomes the db2 inst1 password, the instance user password. This is the name of the database that will get created. This is the directory that we have to create on our local machine outside of the Docker, where the db2 configuration will be stored. This is the port mapping, and this is the Docker image that we have downloaded from the IBM website. Some of the options: -d says run in background, -name is the name of the container, -e is the environmental variables, and -p is the port mapping. So this is how this docker command looks like. Once the Docker is running, you can now connect to your db2 database within the container. If you want to connect within the container, you can say docker exec and connect to that particular Docker and sudo to the db2 user or db2 instance 1. Once you are connected to that user ID within the Docker itself, you can say db2 connect to db2 db, which will connect to the db2 database which is running within the Docker. Now if you don't want to connect within the inside the container, if you want to connect via remote Windows command window or Unix terminal, you can catalog the node. So you'll catalog the TCP IP node. You can give whatever name here. This is the IP address of the machine where the Docker is running. This is the port that we specified. Then we will catalog the database, and then once we have cataloged the node and we have cataloged the database, you are ready to connect to the db2 database, the database that you have cataloged. Now if you don't want to use any of these options and you want to use a GUI tool, you can use tools such as IBM Data Studio, DB Weaver, DB Visualizer, or any other database management tools that you are familiar with. Now if you want to start and stop the db2 container, you will say db2 stop db2 docker. This is the name of the Docker container that is running. Or if you want to start it again, you'll say docker start, and if you want to remove the container, you'll say docker remove. So now that we have seen everything, let's proceed. And first thing that we'll have to do is pull the Docker image. Let's go here, and here if you see, let me close all of this. If you go to the images containers, we don't have any running containers, and if you look at the images, we don't have any images here. So let me launch the PowerShell command. So let's launch the Windows PowerShell. So let's say run as administrator. So here is the PowerShell. Let me clear this. So let me clean this so that we see everything good. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to run a command. Let me minimize this. Let me see if I have any images on this machine. So docker images shows that, and you can see we don't have any images. And let's say if I have docker ps, which shows that if any images or containers are running. So neither any images are there, neither any containers are running. So now what we are going to do, we are going to download the Docker. So we will say docker pull. So this is the command that we are going to use, which will pull the Docker image. Now this particular image is slightly bigger. It's going to go to the db2, and you can see it has started downloading 1.2 GB. So it's quite a big package. So give it a few minutes. I'll not waste your time. Let me pause the video and come back once the Docker image is been downloaded. So as you can see, the Docker image, the pull has been completed and it has successfully downloaded the Docker image. Now what we will do, we will run exactly the same commands. Let's make it bigger. So docker images. So that command will show us if there are any Docker images, and you can see we have an IBM db2 community db2 Docker image, which is present on our machine. So we got the Docker image. And if I say docker ps, you will see that we don't have any image, we don't have any running container. So let's go to our Docker desktop and let's verify if we get the same data. So let's go here and you can see we got a Docker image. However, if you want to see the container, there is nothing running. So we have an Db2 Docker image. However, we don't have a running container. So now the next part is run that particular Docker command. But before we run that, let's create a directory. So you can create it manually. So let's go to C drive, and here under this, let's create a directory called db2. You can use the make dir command. So this is the directory that we just created. Now what we are going to do, we are going to use the docker run command. So this particular docker run command, if you see this is the name of the Docker. This becomes the instance password. This becomes the name of db2 database. This is the directory that we created, and this is the host to port mapping, and this is the image that we have downloaded from the Docker IBM Docker repository. So now let's take this, go back here, let's clear the screen and let's run that. And once we run this, you can see it has started running. And now if you go here under the containers, we were saying that there was no container running. Now you can see a db2 Docker is running, or I can verify that using the docker ps command. So if I run the docker ps command, you can see a one image which is using the db2 Docker image, one container which is using the db2 image is running right now on the machine. So this particular Docker image is going through the setup. Now remember, we created a directory empty. It was an empty directory, but if you see here, we got the config, the db2 instance one, db2 fence one. So it's going to create a lot of things. Now this particular, if you want to see the logs of this, you can actually see what it is doing. So you can see it is now it has started the instance. It is going to set up this one, and it's going to create the database, etc. So right now the instance is getting created. The first time when you run this particular setup, because it does a lot of the stuff, it actually creates the instance, it creates the database, etc, etc. It is going to take time. Once that Docker has been set up, next time when you want to connect to the database, you just have to start the Docker and connect to the database. So give it a few minutes for this particular command to get executed. If you want to actually connect to the db2 Docker, what you can potentially do, let's see if we can launch Windows command prompt. And what we will do, let's clear this. Let's say this, let's clear this, and let's put it in a center, and let's try to see if we can connect to the Docker using docker exec. And you can see we have now, and if you look at what version of db2 it is, and you can see it is a latest db2 12.1, which is the latest version. So that is the version which is running in the db2 Docker. Now if you want to take a look at what it's doing behind the scene, you can do db2 diag -f, which is a db2 diagnostic file, and you can see it is running all of this. So it's going to do this. It's going to take some time, so give it a few minutes. Let's exit. And let's exit from here and give it a few minutes for it to set up and do the work. So I don't want to waste your time. Let me pause and come back. So the IBM has completed the setup. So let's go back and let's try to see if we can connect to the database. We have connected so this is the first method. So within what we have saying, docker exec attached to that particular Docker and sudo to this user, which is the instance user. So that's what I have done. So docker exec, the name of the Docker that we ran, and sudo to this instance user ID. Let's see if any databases are running using db2 list active databases command, and let's try to find out if there are any databases. And you can see there is a database called db2 db. That particular database is the database that we specified. And you can see that particular database is now active within the Docker. If you want to connect to that particular database, you can say db2 connect to db2 db, and you can see we have connected successfully to a db2 db database which is running with version 12.1. Now this is within the Docker itself. Now if you want to make a connection from remote, how do you do that? So let's launch Windows command prompt, and here let me make it a little bit small. Yeah, and let me make it, just give me a minute so that you can see the commands clearly. So now what we will see, what we will do, we will catalog the node. So using the catalog TCP IP node, we will catalog the node. So let's take this command, catalog the node, TCP IP node. This can be your choice. This is the machine where the Docker is running. You can either give the host name or port. This is the DB2 port, DB2 service port. Let's run this particular command. And the TCP IP node has been cataloged. Let's catalog the database. Let's catalog the database. And that's done. Let's terminate so that the cache is refreshed. Let's clear the screen, and if everything is good, we should be able to connect to that particular database from remote. So let's say DB2 connect to DB2 DB, and you can see we have successfully connected to that particular database. Now if you don't like this particular method, you could also connect using the remote tools such as DB Visualizer or anything like that. So what we will do, we will try to see if we have a table called employee. So let's say DB2, let's say select star from employee. Let's take a look at this particular table, and we don't have any such table. So what we will do, we will launch a tool. Let's say we will use the DB Visualizer or probably DB Viewer. So let's use DB Viewer. So give it a few minutes for this particular tool to launch. And we will make, let's close this. Let's make a connection. So database, new database connection, IBM DB2 LUW. Host is the Docker. So that is actually Win11. That's where the Windows 11 machine. It is a Windows 11 machine. The database name that we want to connect is DB2 DB using DB2 INST1 and using the password, which is literally password. Let's do the test connection. And you can see it says connected. That's good. Let's finish. And now what we will do, we will open a SQL editor, open SQL script, and we will copy this particular scripts. Let's do that. Let's create a table here using this particular create command. Let's create a table. Let's insert one record. That's done. And let's select from that particular employee, which we can see. Now let's go back to our Windows command, and here when we ran that particular command, we said we got an output saying that undefined name. Let's see if we get an output, and we got that one rock, which means that we connected to the same Docker database, the DB2 database, which is running within the Docker using DB Ever software, or we could have created it from here as well. So this was the short tutorial on how to run IBM DB2 database in Docker. You have only two steps. You pull the Docker and you run the Docker using Docker run command, and then you are ready to connect to your DB2 database via multiple options such as using within the container, using Windows command window or Unix terminal, or using the GUI tools such as Data Studio, DB Ever or DB Visualizer. I hope you like this particular tutorial. If you did like this particular tutorial, do hit the like button. If you do like the videos that I'm uploading on my channel, do subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and see you in next tutorial. Till then, bye bye.